Actually,
So you would never do that now? You'd absolutely not countenance faster than light travel?
If I had a really good story to tell, sure. I prefer not to, though. But look at it this way. If you write a sonnet that is 16 lines long and does not rhyme, you haven't written a bad sonnet. You haven't written a sonnet at all. If you go too far in this in science fiction, you're not writing science fiction. You're writing a form of unacknowledged fantasy.
I'd like to bring up something that came out of the opposite end of the circle a couple of years ago, from Jeff Ryman and his Clarion group, who emitted a document called the Mundane SF Manifesto. And the point they were making of Mundane SF Manifesto is science fiction has been around a long time as a genre, and there's an awful lot of toys in the toolbox that we take for granted, but that don't actually work terribly well. Examples would include, okay, psionic powers, telepathy, when did you last have your mind read? Time machines, faster than light travel, aliens. We can book a rather pathetic defense, but we haven't explicitly proven these are impossible, or they don't exist. But that's very much, well, go ahead and prove a negative. The onus should actually be the other way around. If you want them, you've got to prove that they do exist, or are feasible. And the odds look rather high against that. To go a bit further, space is big. As Douglas Adams said, space is unbelievably big. Yet it is not built to a convenient human scale. So the mundane SF folks are actually trying to go back to basics and say, write SF that actually doesn't involve magic. Otherwise, what you're getting, a lot of the space operatic stuff that's so popular, is indistinguishable from fantasy.
Didn't they sort of, I was sort of on board at that point, but then that wasn't enough. Well, they had to extend the argument by saying, actually writing about colonisation, leaving the Earth is a bad thing because it implies that we're going to trash the planet and we don't give a toss about it.
They went too far.
Yeah, but I take on board a chunk of their stuff. One of my plans is to do a mundane SF space opera, asking her, eschew all propulsion and energy technologies that aren't at least vaguely on the drawing board and make sense in terms of physics.
So you are going to rape the planet?
This actually... that's going to render the human species extinct first. Don't have fun with robots. This led to Peter Watts in the bar saying that I'm much more pessimistic about the human future than he is.
Boy, there's a strange insult.
Peter Watts is a sunny optimist. Anyway, though, there's a number of other technologies which really look rather dodgy. Just the concept of fusion power, we're close enough to the construction of the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, but the difficulties are now becoming obvious. Such as how you actually get useful amounts of energy out of the thing. This thing is sitting there at 100 million degrees Kelvin, spewing neutrons. I thought the idea of fusion was to be clean and nuclear power, not a 100% perfect source of
too cheap to meter.
Yep.
Jeff, do you have anything to say?
I would agree that getting science right shouldn't be the enemy of fun. Actually, I can remember, it was one of those moments where I felt I should applaud. Greg Benford wrote a short story in which he had fast and light travel. And he said, having had the idea of the story, he spent a day thinking about whether he would use fast and light travel in the story. I think that's actually very responsible. I think it also means he's going to push the story to the limits. I tried to make the science fit within the narrative, which sometimes means the scientific plausibility goes out the window if you were trying to persuade a scientist. But if I'm trying to persuade a science fiction writer that yes, you should believe in, science fiction reader, that you should believe in the story as it is constructed, yes, that's okay. There are times I wish I could make my science more rigorous, but sometimes I find that the amount of work that is required just to move from this planet to this planet, or from that system to this system, is more work than saying, they got in the spaceship, they went from A, they got to B.
Yeah.
Story continues.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, the one kind of FDL that's okay by me, and that I've used in the last couple of decades, I think exclusively, including in Foundation Spirit, the sequel to Foundation that I wrote, is that I explain Asimov's Faster Than Life by saying that they use the wormhole network. And that's the one legitimate theoretical method to do it, because we believe wormholes may exist. They were called Einstein-Rosen bridges when Einstein and Rosen invented them in 1936. John Wheeler renamed them wormholes. Because we don't know if they exist. I mean, and we don't know how to make them, but if God made them, you're home free. So the trick is to find them. And in fact, one paper I published on wormholes is about how to find a certain class of wormhole that would show up in certain fluttering star experience. So, I mean, that's, I think, a legitimate thing, and that's the one observation we could make in astronomy that would really blow open our conceptual universe ab initio. I mean, particularly if you find one, say, one that's in the Oort cloud. And that's actually what the paper was about.
Yeah. Well, that sort of segues neatly into the point I was hoping to make next, which was sometimes we want to write about the very far future, not just the next 100 years, not just the next 1,000 years, but we want to deal with, say, the distant future of the human race or our post-human descendants, or we want to deal with an alien super civilization. Now, we may presume that their science and technology is going to be somewhat far in advance of our own, but do we feel an obligation to sort of stick to physics as we understand it now, or is that the point where it's legitimate to introduce some hand waving, some rule bending, some super science, just to as a kind of shorthand for the fact that this is literally beyond our immediate conception?
Well, that's one way to look at it. I mean, the further you are from home, the more outrageous your behavior can become, because there's no consequence and nobody will remember, right? I mean, that's a lot of behavior at this conference. That's okay. But to go back to sonnet analogy, every time you loosen a constraint, you lose the possibility of some added coherence. I mean, that's why sonnets work, because of the constraints. So you've got to be careful. I mean, the problem with blank verse is that have you noticed that nobody cares about it much anymore?
Yeah. Clarke's second law, was it? Any sufficiently advanced technology that's indistinguishable from magic. Okay, his third law has a corollary. Any sufficiently extreme work of SF is indistinguishable from fantasy.
Charlie, you've written about the Accelerando sequence takes us into the sort of era of dismantling the planet, matryoshka brains, super evolved, uploaded humans.
Yeah, it got very hard to keep going at that point.
Did you keep physics more or less sacrosanct, or did you start introducing
wormhole network? I would say in retrospect that was the one big flaw I put in that novel.
No, that's not a flaw, that's an aspect. It's not a bug, it's a feature. Actually, my form of that, Clarke's law, is any technology that does not appear magical is insufficiently advanced.
You've had cosmic streams being used to take a middle out of the planet.
Yes, it's like coring an apple with a cosmic string. I mean, cosmic strings are fashionable, so I just use them as a tool. I mean, I tried to imagine really advanced technologies. And then toward the end of the Galactic Center series, I've got space-time folded, crinkled up, knotted up, and wadded up space-time used as a construction material.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing particularly wrong with that.
So that's
just that we don't know how to do it.
That's legitimate pseudoscience. It's not breaking any. It might be doing crazy things with mass energy density, but it's not breaking the speed of light or sort of conservation laws. What about you? Did you go into the far future? I mean, we're in Australia now, so we're sort of 6 hours ahead.
Yes. Because we're always in the future. I've done things where I've sketched in the far future, and you just give hints that things are a lot different. But again, without trying to push it into total implausibility, but always with a hint that it does connect to something that might be scientific. I actually think that one of the nice features about Al's House of Suns is he has spaceships zipping along at 1,000 G. He doesn't actually detail the mechanisms, but it's implied that he's using some sort of, I guess, what used to be called field drive.
Yes.
Doesn't detail the energy, but you have to assume that he's kept that within reason too. The story doesn't require an explanation. You just have, it gives a description as if, for example, you didn't know how an internal combustion engine, which a lot of writers don't anyway, the car just pulls away in the appropriate way. It keeps the logic of the story consistent.
How do people live in 1000 G?
Well, with the stasis fields, of course.
Stasis field? Stasis field?
I've not got those. I threw everything at that book. I'm going to have slower than light travel, but every other piece of crappy SF furniture is going into the plot. You know, you've got your effectively I don't call them stasis fields, but you've got sort of time bubbles, force fields, tractor beams. You're all way in there.
So you're not a mundane.
No, that was my anti-mundane, the 9th degree novel.
The mundane movement has, in a sense, a good thing that I agree with. That is, we face really large problems, particularly climate change, things like that, and it would be really good if science fiction would focus on it, because this largely hasn't. There's an anthology coming out next month called "Welcome to the Greenhouse" that Gordon Van Gelder edited, and I have a story in it, and it's about climate change stories. But when I was writing one, I noticed that I hadn't hardly ever read any. And yet that's the big looming elephant in the room. And to some extent, I think we would enhance at least our credibility and our usefulness to the society if we would write some stories about this. Particularly, I have been working on geoengineering, so I'm going to write, I think, several stories about geoengineering, because I think it's a huge issue, and it's coming at us like a freight train. And nobody seems to notice.
Science fiction has blind spots.
Yeah.
I mean, did you notice how long it took science fiction as a whole to catch on to personal computing, much less network computing?
Yeah.
There were only a couple of books published for about 1980 that made any kind of mention of it. I would cite the note in God's Eye because Jerry Pownell got eerily accurate with his personal pocket computers.
Yeah.
But that's the exception, not the rule.
And that's
There was one great and everybody else
3000
ignored it. Yeah, that was set in the year 3000. And he had iPhones.
You think we'll sort of
Well, I mean, what Charlie was saying about the mundanes, I mean, I sort of reacted violently to the mundane movement, and they went too far. But I can't deny that I think that as the years have gone, it's sort of percolated into my thinking a little bit. And I've committed a couple of acts of mundane SF since then.
Well, if you want a career opportunity, you know, as an SF writer, you could write the near future story, the next few decades, because almost no one is.
It's hard work.
Sorry, just to go back to stories about climate change. Of course, George Turner, the Australian science fiction writer, wrote a series of novels, specifically Sea and Summer, Drowning Towers in the US, but that was specifically about the impact of fairly heavy-duty climate change. The following set of novels he did, he went for a milder version of climate change, but climate change was still in there. George was someone who was very concerned about writing essentially about the next century, since he was writing the 20th century, and of course writing about Melbourne because he lived in Melbourne and he knew it, and he was very concerned about the social and political changes that had just come with the technology.
And you know, that's why it was so tragic that when I was the guest of honor 11 years ago here, I didn't get to meet George Turner, because I really looked forward to talking to him about exactly that. My feeling about those books was it was all about essentially adapting to the inevitable, and my instinct is to try to stop that inevitability. I mean, I think that's the real cutting edge. It's not, otherwise, you know, you venture into Ballardian territory, you know, which is, here's this irresistible disaster that's happening to humanity, and you're supposed to live with it.
Embrace it.
Yes. I like Jimmy Ballard, but I just don't like that point of view, because to me, it's life is a doormat.
Yeah.